All right, Doug. The interviewer would like to say, first of all, I have to say that I'm very happy to be able to interview you. I love King's X, and you are one of my favorite bass players. Can you tell us about your musical beginnings and what were some of your earliest influences and what was your first concert experience?
Oh, okay. What was the first one?
The first
The
question,
first.
tell me some of your earliest influences.
Oh, my earliest influences were blues and soul music when I was a little kid. I mean, I think from the time I was born, there was music playing somewhere in my family. I grew up with a huge family with cousins and relatives all living within the same house or next door, and so there was like a whole bunch of us, and so a lot of teenagers playing music and relatives who played blues music down the street. So I was listening to Chicago blues and just old rock and roll, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and stuff like that. That's what was happening at the time, and also Pat Boone and Frank Sinatra and stuff like that. Whatever they were playing, I heard it and I just
What was
drank
your
it up.
first concert experience?
First concert experience is actually going to see. Well, concert was Ray Charles. I was 12. My uncle took me and his two daughters, my cousins, to see him, and it was an amazing show. I don't remember a whole lot of it other than the Raylette singing. And I remember Ray said one time, I was sitting down watching TV one day and and everybody started laughing because he always made blind jokes, which was pretty cool. Um, yeah, that was the first concert ever really went to, I think. I remember the first Broadway play I went to, I was 6, and I was in first grade, and I was the only black kid in my school, and all of us kids we all sat in the front row in Chicago, front couple rows, and it was in Chicago at this theater, and it was in the afternoon, an afternoon show. We took a little bus up there, and I remember watching the show, and Auntie Mame was the musical, and the lady who was Auntie Mame was doing her thing, and she walked up the edge of the stage and she's doing her act, and she looked down at me and winked, and all my friends all looked at me and chuckled and smiled, and that was one of the beginnings of how people have all my life gave me that, out of a crowd of people, just point me out, like, I don't know why they did that, but I kind of got used to it, I guess. Because I've been doing it all my life now. It's trying to get in your face and be noticed.
Okay, so he's asking, you've always had a large Christian audience due to your spiritualized lyrics. Although
Mm-hmm.
you never said you were a Christian band, question mark. How
Mm-hmm.
did how did your fans and how do people react when you came out with your homosexuality?
Some didn't like it and some didn't care. I've got much support from all my friends and the people that I respect as Christians, and the other ones rejected me and uh, uh, or prayed for me. Put it that way. That's what they say. And also, our music got banned from Christian bookstores, but I don't care. I didn't care. We didn't want to be a Christian band because the biggest reason why we didn't want to be in that arena is because we would have to be fake to sell records and not be ourselves. And that's bullshit. And we didn't want to do it.
Right on. It says you were the lead singer of Living Color for a very short period of time in 2006. Can you please tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. Corey was doing Jesus Christ Superstar, I guess. And Living Color had gotten 10 gigs, I think it is, in Europe and festivals, and they really wanted to do it. They were going to make some money, and so Corey said, "Why don't you ask Doug if he wants to sit in?" And they asked me, and I said, "How much?" And they told me, and I went, "Yes, I'll do it. I'll do it." I mean, it was a great paycheck, and I would have did it. I don't care who it was. It was a time in my life where I needed to pay some bills, so went out, and I know the guys and I love them. So we had a great time doing it. I learned a lot about them, just jamming with another band. And it's the first time since I was probably a teenager where I actually was a front man without a bass. So that really was a different animal for me. I hope I stepped up to the plate. I did the best I could, but I don't know. I've never been a front man without a bass in my hand.
So, is it true that Richie Blackmore invited you to be the lead singer of Deep Purple? And if so, why did you decline?
I remember the phone rang and I answered. I said, hello. He said, this is Richie Blackmore from Deep Purple. I love your band. We're looking for a lead singer. Would you like to sing in Deep Purple? And I said, hang on. And I had 3 friends in the room with me. And I said, dude, Richie Blackmore just called and wants me to join Deep Purple. What should I tell him? And they all looked at me and said, no. And so I took the phone and said, nah, I mean, I'm already in my own band. I mean, a band and I'm pretty happy with what we're doing right now. I mean, we had like 2 records out. Gretchen was out, I think. And he says, okay, mate, thanks. Thing was, I should have kept in touch with him. No, I had his phone number. We could have been friends. I love Deep Purple, one of my favorite bands in the world. I learned to play bass off of Machine Head. I could play that record backwards and forwards.
So there's been multiple times where Pearl Jam bassist Jeff Ament has said in many interviews that King's X should be credited as the ones who invented grunge. Do you agree?
I totally agree with him. But there is a little discrepancy. We must discuss this because in 1985, Ty wrote Pleiades, and it was the first drop D tune song that we had ever heard, and it had this sound that we loved. And I remember going home and immediately writing almost every song that I wrote on Out of the Silent Planet was in drop D tuning. It just opened up a whole new world of sound in my head. I don't know if Ty was planning on making that our sound for the rest of our career, but I know that everything I wrote was in drop D after that point. Now, Kim Thales told me that he introduced Chris Cornell to drop D in 1985 also. So both of us were dabbling with that, both bands. And when the first Soundgarden proper record came out, I forgot the name of it, Ultimega OK, the first song started out with a bunch of noises, and then the riff was a drop D tune riff. King's X record came out the same year, within a month of each other. Not knowing these bands, we didn't know them, they had never heard of us. And our first song had a whole bunch of weird noises, just like Soundgarden. And the first song was a drop D tune song. So at that point, we can argue over it. But I know that Soundgarden went all kinds of different directions, and King's X stuck with that drop D thing. And it was King's X who turned a lot of those bands into drop D tuning. They had told me that it wasn't quite Soundgarden. It was, I know that we came to town in Seattle on our first album, and a friend of mine that played in Jeff Ament's side project told me that every musician was at that show. He said because every time a national band would come through town, all the musicians would come because most people didn't know who they were and didn't care. And Seattle wasn't that big of a town, just got a lot of good musicians. And he said everybody was at that show. And Jeff told me, he said a few weeks later, he went to see Alice in Chains, and they had changed their sound from a Guns N' Roses type thing to drop D, or drop this low broody sound that he called it, which reminded him of King's X. And I think that Alice in Chains actually, when they came out, that's when everybody turned their heads, because it was such a great record, and that was drop D tuning. And so I think a lot of bands really introduced it to the world, but I do believe that King's X was spawned the interest, put it that way. Was that a lot too much?
That's perfect.
Okay.
So, okay.
Because I like to be humble about that. I hate to say, oh, we did that, because there's somebody can come along and go, oh, no, you didn't. Black Sabbath was in drop D on Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. And, Van Halen, a couple songs was in drop D. The only difference I found in drop D tuning in all these bands that did a 1 or 2 songs was that the bass player never dropped D. He always stayed in the regular tuning and wouldn't go down to that bottom E like everybody else did. And so I always felt like King's X was set apart from that because my bass was tuned down with Thai.
Right on. So, okay, so he's asking, what do you know about Brazilian music? Sepultura does not count.
I know nothing if I don't know anything about Sepultura. I love Sepultura. I know nothing else about Brazilian music, only that they love metal. Really, it's a part of the culture. It's a part of the revolution. And I think that's awesome that metal music is the national anthem of Brazil. The other thing though is I do love Sepultura, and I'm talking about the early Sepultura back in the day when I was just started discovering them as I discovered Slayer. And I just, to me, that was Brazilian because it had a different kind of groove to it. In fact, I was talking to Igor one time, and right before, there's a record that came out. I forgot the name of it now. But we were talking one day, and I said, dude, you guys need to take the jungle Brazilian part of your heritage and put it in your metal. That would be badass. And then the next record that came out had that element in it, which I went, yeah. I don't know if I take credit for that, but it was a coincidence.
Have you been following the political scene in Brazil at all? Do you know anything that's going on or what your opinion is about that at all?
No, not at all. Just what the American news tells me, and it's, that's bias and bullshit, so you really don't know what's going on.
Gotcha. Okay, do you think that King's X deserved greater recognition for everything that you've done during these years?
I don't think anybody deserves anything if they're just doing what they're meant to do. I would have loved to be able to have a bit more money than I didn't make in this career, in this band, in my career. But what was the question again? I forgot the exact thing because I want to tie it back to that.
You deserved greater recognition for what you've done.
Oh yeah. I mean, we worked hard for what we've done. And the thing about it is that you can't cry over thinking what you deserved, because what you deserve is what you get. And that's what I believe. And whatever it was that didn't translate to the masses in King's X is not anybody's fault but ours. And I own it. I don't know what it was, and it doesn't matter at this point. At this point in our lives, we've done this for so long, and we're pretty okay with ourselves, So at that point, I can't say anybody deserves anything, really.
Okay, a couple more questions, and then we can get to the fire off a couple quick ones for you.
All right.
The last couple questions are, what's your opinion about internet MP3 file sharing? And do you think that it is a problem for labels and artists, or has it become a ally?
It destroyed the music industry, and it destroyed every fucking band that's out there. Once you give somebody something for free, they'll never pay for it again. And that's all I gotta say. Hasn't helped anything. Not a fucking thing.
Can you tell us about other projects, KXM, Grinder Blues, Super Shine, anything that you've got in the background that you'd like to talk about?
I got this band called Grinder Blues, the blues band. I call ourselves ZZ Top on steroids, drop tune to be. Okay, me and the Billman brothers, two guys, Scott and J-Bo Billman, guitar player and drummer. We had put one record out called Grinder Blues, and we got the second one done. It's been in the can for a couple of years, but hopefully it's coming out soon as we get that all worked out. KXM has been talking about number 4, and we're starting to actually send ideas to each other, which we never did before. We usually get into a room and just everybody throws it in a pile and it comes out as the way it is. But this time we've decided to take a different approach so that we don't, this fourth record just doesn't come out sounding like a rehash of the last 3. And a solo record, I'm just about done with my solo record. I've got about 20 songs, and, I don't know if I'm going to put an EP out or a record or whatever, but, something's coming soon. I think that's about it that I can think of at the moment.
What are your thoughts? He can't help but ask this question because it's relevant to everybody. What are your thoughts about the pandemic and everything that's going on in the world right now? How are you trying to keep your mental health?
Well, I live at home and I'm always at home. Only time I do anything is if I go to a club or go see somebody. But basically, my life is at home doing work from home, unless I'm on tour. So the difference for me is that we can't go on tour, so there's no paycheck, and I can't just go down to the local club and have a drink like I used to. But other than that, my life is pretty much the same. For me personally, it's just watching everyone else and what they're going through, the people that don't have any money or any food and they can't even feed their dogs, and other people like Madonna who's in a pool of milk with flowers around her saying we're all in this together. It's like you just look from one end to the other, and the conversation is not centralized. The conversation isn't looking for solutions. It's left and right pushing each other away from each other. And I'm quite sick of it. I'm just in the middle and I'm just watching the circus, and as far as I'm concerned, the United States is sinking and it's going to die.
Would you like to leave a message for any of the Brazilian fans before we move on to some random questions?
Okay. You Brazilian people, keep listening to King's X and keep telling everybody about King's X, because that's the only way people are going to know about us, and we thank you so much.
So now I've got a couple fast questions for you, and you can just fire them off the top of your head. So first question is, what's your favorite color?
Green.
What's your favorite food?
Barbecue ribs and watermelon.
What's your favorite?
It's true. It's true.
Who's your favorite bass player?
My favorite bass player is Chris Squire.
Do you prefer studio or playing live?
Say it again.
Do you prefer being in the studio or playing live?
Well, it's two different ways. I love playing live because of the spontaneity and the crowd, but I love being in the studio where I can make it right before I take it to the people. I think both are equal in my life.
Can you name a couple things that you like?
A couple of things I like. God, how do you answer that?
If there's a follow-up, it's with what things do you hate? So.
Okay. What do I like? I don't even know how to answer that. I really don't. Because I
maybe we'll go with the hate first then.
Yeah, what do you hate? Well, what do I hate? I hate hypocrites, and I hate mustard and mayonnaise. That's what I hate.
Do you like cats or dogs or both?
I'm not a pet fan at all. My roommates all my life have had a dog or a cat, and I have become their best friend, and I've spent more time with them and fed them and pampered them and loved them. But when they leave with their dog or cat, I don't want to see another one. I am not a pet man at all. But like I said, if there's a pet around, I'll spoil it.
All right, final question. And this is kind of a deeper one for you. What does art mean to you?
Art is just an expression of you, whatever you're expressing, deep within or outside, shallow, deep. Art is an expression of someone who, and that's all you can do with it is take it as their expression, and you can't judge it. You can't say it's good. You can't say it's bad. You can't say anything about it because it's an expression from someone. So I do hate critics who are critical of something coming from a very ignorant standpoint, which is they think they know what's going on in your mind when you did something that was art, and that's bullshit. Critics are bullshit. People should be able to decide what they like and what they don't like.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Doug, very much for your time, and
you're welcome.
We appreciate you in Brazil.
Hey.